Morning, everyone. It's March 9th, 2019. America, to unite us, we came up with the threat of global warming. The common enemy of humanity, water shortages, famine, and the like, would fit the bill. All these dangers are caused by human intervention, and behavior is humanity itself. This is from the Club of Rome. And then coming from Maurice Strong of the UN Environment Program, isn't the only hope for the planet that industrialized civilizations collapse? Isn't it our responsibility to bring that about? I am talking about this today because of that twit, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, coming out with this shit bill called the Green New Deal. And this is what it's based on. It's based on the idea that the commoners, the slaves of the world, need to give up certain things, such as heating, air conditioning, taking flights, driving, these things, anything that leaves a carbon footprint. Anthropogenic climate change and the control of carbon dioxide, or energy, has deep roots in a radical yet gravely misguided campaign to reduce the world's population. A misanthropic agenda engineered by the environmental movement in the mid-1970s, who realized that doing something about global warming would play to quite a number of its social agendas. The goal was advanced, most notably by the Club of Rome, a group of mainly European scientists and academics who used computer modeling to warn the world that the world would run out of finite resources if population growth were left unchecked. And I don't totally disagree with the idea that some places are overpopulated, as I experience this every time I get into my car and try to drive anywhere. So, in search for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that the threat of global warming would fit the bill. The real enemy, then, is humanity itself. The Club of Rome's 1972 environmental bestseller, The Limits to Growth, examined 5 variables in the original model: world population, industrialization, pollution, food production, and resource depletion. Not surprisingly, the study predicted a dire future for mankind unless we act now. The world in peril. Who's that coming from? Okay. This comes from, this is an excerpt from The Limits of Growth. We are unanimously convinced that rapid, radical redressment of the present unbalanced and dangerously deteriorating world situation is the primary task facing mankind. Concerted international measures and joint long-term planning will be necessary on a scale and scope without precedent. This supreme effort is founded on a basic change of values and goals at individual, national, and world levels. Around the same time, influential anthropologist and president of the American Medical Association for the Advancement of Science, Margaret Mead, gathered together like-minded anti-population hoaxers at her 1975 North Carolina conference. The atmosphere, endangered and endangering. Mead's star recruits were climate scare artist Stephen Schneider, population freak George Woodwell, and former AAAS John Holdren, currently President Barack Obama's science and technology czar. Well, he was. All three of them disciples of the Malthusian catastrophist Paul Ehrlich, author of The Population Bomb. Now, I've talked about the Malthusian catastrophe many times, and they are right there to a certain point. The conference concluded that human-produced carbon dioxide would fry the planet, melt the ice caps, and destroy human life. The idea being to sow enough fear of man-made climate change to force global cutbacks in industrial activity and halt third world development. Basically, their idea is to de-industrialize the world, except for the things that the ruling class needs to exert its control over everyone else. James Delingpole of the Telegraph elaborates. With man's industrial fortunes fingered at as the driver of equal destructive population growth, it was inevitable that science would be called upon to act as judge, jury, and executioner. However, as it turned out, the science of global warming was butchered, tortured, and corrupted to prove a hypothesis rather than to perform objective science. James Delingpole of the Telegraph elaborates. The reason I have become so obsessed with global warming in the last few years is not because I'm particularly interested in how many drowning polar bears can dance on the head of a pin. Non-argument which hysterical sites like Real Climate and bloggers like Joe Romm are striving to desperately keep on a life support machine. It's because, unlike some I've read widely enough to see the bigger picture. One thing I've learned in this wide reading is how obsessed so many of the key thinkers in the Green Movement are with the notion of overpopulation. As one of them, or as one of their favorite think tanks, the Club of Rome, puts it, Earth has a cancer, and the cancer is man. This belief explains why the science behind AGW is so doggy, because the science didn't come first. What came first was the notion that mankind was a problem and was doing harm to the planet. The science was then simply tortured until it fit in with this notion. When they talk about consensus, they're not talking about complete agreement on these issues. Many, many, many thousands of scientists disagree with what these people are saying. Dr. Tim Ball details how the science of climate change came to be tortured until it fit in with the notion. Almost every aspect of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, work is manipulated, selected, and controlled to prove human CO2 is causing global warming. The objective was to prove the hypothesis, not to perform objective science. The goal was established by the Club of Rome, whose member Maurice Strong transmitted and translated it into world government policy through the United Nations. The common enemy of humanity is man, and searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that the threat of global warming would fit the bill. The real enemy, then, is humanity itself. We believe humanity requires a common motivation, namely a common adversary, in order to realize world government. It does not matter if this common enemy is a real one or one invented for that purpose. Club of Rome, Maurice Strong. He was assisted by politicians like Al Gore and Tim Wirth in 1993. The latter did not hide the naked political objective. We've got to ride this global warming issue. Even if the theory of global warming is wrong, we will be doing the right thing in terms of economic and environmental policy. That comes from Tim Wirth, president of the UN Foundation. They were also aided by national weather agencies and bureaucratic scientists with similar political persuasions appointed to the IPCC. They claimed their goal was achieved in 2007 IPCC report, which concluded, in quotes, "Another unusual aspect of recent climate change is its cause. Past climate changes were natural in origin, whereas most of the warming of the past 50 years is attributed to human activities." Now, how can the climate changes that came before us, or came before this particular round, how can it be natural and the latter not be? All of the CO2 numbers used by the IPCC are very poor estimates and designed to underline the human impact. They are meaningless figures from the total volumes to the annual flows and the human inputs as depicted in the IPCC's carbon cycle diagram. IPCC wanted to prove human CO2 was causing global warming as part of their belief that industrialized populations would exhaust all resources and had to be shut down. Their only objective was to show human production was steadily increasing. Their calculations predetermined that because human CO2 production is directly linked to population increase, a population increase guarantees a CO2 increase. It is another of their circular arguments that has no basis in science or reality. So, is the planet overpopulated? No, it's not. There are areas of the planet that are overpopulated, but the planet as a whole is not. Tim Ball has done the numbers and concludes the world is not overpopulated. That fallacy is perpetrated in all environmental research, policy, and planning, including global warming and latterly climate change. Overpopulation, the fallacy behind the, overpopulation, the fallacy behind the fallacy of global warming. Global warming was just one issue the Club of Rome targeted in its campaign to reduce world population. In 1995, the club's co-founder Alexander King with Bertrand Schneider wrote The First Global Revolution, stating, in quotes, "The common enemy of humanity is man. In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. All of these dangers are caused by human intervention, and it is only through changed attitudes and behavior that we can overcome, or that they can be overcome. The real enemy, then, is humanity itself." They believe all these problems are created by humans, but exacerbated by a growing population using technology. Changed attitudes and behavior basically means what has meant from the time. Thomas Malthus raised the idea the world was overpopulated. He believed charity and laws to help the poor were a major cause of the problem, and it was necessary to reduce the population through rules and regulations. The TCCR ideas all ended up in the political activities of the Rio 1992 conference organized by Maurice Strong, a TCCR member under the United Nations Environment Program, or UNEP. The assumptions and objectives became the main structure of Agenda 21, the master plan for the 21st century. The global warming threat was confronted at Rio through the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and creation of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It was structured to predetermine scientific proof that human CO2 was one contribution of the common enemy. So they had preconceived notions, right? And all of these numbers are wrong. And they're still running with them. They're still pushing this bullshit. Why? Because they want you dead. They want the population to be about 500 million. Paltridge, this warming pause may destroy the reputation of science. I'm going to hit the key points in here. In light of all of this, we have to at least consider the possibility that the scientific establishment behind the global warming issue has been drawn into the trap of seriously overstating the climate problem. And that's an understatement. And they're right when they say this is why scientific organizations have tragically become almost the last place to hear the truth about the global warming pause. Too many reputations are now at stake. And it's not just global warming science, it's all of it, right? I mean, just look at the shit they say about the pyramids of Egypt, or many of the other megaliths. They try telling you that people built ramps and pulled these huge 50-ton blocks with llama skin ropes and ramps. right? A complete slap to the face of any thinking person. See if there's any more. No. So anyway, this idea of man-made or man-caused climate change is bullshit. They've been looking for an enemy to unite the people for many, many decades. They thought they had a winner in climate change, but no one believes them, and rightfully so. You shouldn't believe anything that comes out of these fucking people's mouths. They want you dead. Same reason why you shouldn't be following the laws written by these people. They want you dead. And it goes against, completely goes against any sense of logic to follow the whims, the rules created by people who openly call you an enemy. Till next time, kill the state before the state kills you.